Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio. Me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. Guys, this week we're going to talk about teamwork. So whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you maybe play on a sports team, maybe you're in the corporate world and you lead a team, maybe you're on a team and you want to sort of work on how to foster better teamwork, and fostering along with that, relationships, not only with your team and on the career side of things, but also, relationships within your personal life as well. We're going to talk about that this week. And our guest this week, you guys are going to love Mike. Today we're delighted to be speaking with Mike Starr, who recently wrote a book entitled Journey into Peace, A Language for Peace, Progress, and Healing, in which he advocates that many of the words we use today in our everyday language have woven within them self-fulfilling prophecies. You guys can, I'm sure, appreciate that. These words can have us spiral up and prosper, spiral down and suffer, or just go round and round going nowhere. Mike is an avid adventurer and seasoned expert problem solver. He managed a successful $100 million a year manufacturing business. He is a life coach and former nuclear-trained submarine officer. He has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and even canoed 54 days from Pittsburgh to New Orleans at one point in his life. Mike, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Mike. I know it's been a little bit since we got you scheduled, and I've been looking forward to our conversation here. Before we start diving into a lot of this stuff, tell us a little bit about your career, your entrepreneurial journey, if you would.
Yeah, of course, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a blue-collar family and a blue-collar neighborhood, big Steelers fan.
Yep.
And I was fortunate on a lot of levels to grow up at that time and era. My heart somewhat pains for the challenges that young people are facing today. There's just a lot of confusion. I grew up in a time where merit was merit. You, like NFL football, you were hired, you were congratulated on your ability to perform and get results. The work ethic was really strongly ingrained in me. My dad was a factory worker. He took a lunch bucket to work every day. My mother would work part-time. When I went to college at Carnegie Mellon, she actually would clean houses, so we had enough money to send me to college. And I remember my dad getting laid off at one time when I was a little guy, and he'd be out there plastering houses. So there wasn't any real sense of entitlement, and I don't mean to be derogatory about that, but
yeah.
I grew up in the steel town and steel time where, if it was to be, it's up to me. And I was fortunate enough to get accepted into Carnegie Mellon, which happened to be in Pittsburgh. I actually commuted there because I couldn't afford to live on campus, and took 2 buses in and 2 buses out. And there were some streetcars in between there for a while, and got my degree in electrical engineering. One New Year's party, when a buddy of mine had a little bit too much to drink, we said, "Hey, let's canoe from Pittsburgh to New Orleans," like out of nowhere. And I'm like, that's cool. So I remember telling my mom about it. Of course, my mother was she had to flee during World War II from the Soviets and communism, and saw some very horrific things. Ended up in a Nazi work camp working there. My dad was drafted, became a medic. He landed on Normandy Beach as a medic, and he followed the army through the Battle of Bulge and met up with my mother after the war in Germany. But she was adventurous, and she says, like, that's cool, go for it. So we went 54 days from Pittsburgh to New Orleans, like I think it's 1,800 miles. And one thing I learned from that experience is actually a couple things. One, I learned that the people in this country are fantastic. They're great. I've met a lot of people. I've hitchhiked, I've canoed, I've traveled, I've lived in, 7 or 8 different states. I really just think the core citizenship of this country is fantastic. So I met a lot of great people. We met a lot of great people along the way. And the other thing I learned is it's sometimes good to burn your bridges behind you. So we left Pittsburgh. There was no going back. It was, all downriver, 44 locks or so through the Ohio, and make a left on the Mississippi and go down to New Orleans. And pretty much after that, I ended up graduating. I was drafted into the military and joined the Navy instead. Got interviewed by Admiral Rickover to get in a nuclear power program. And during I took a 6-month hiatus. They says that I could take 6 months before I go to boot camp when I was enlisted. And I ended up hitchhiking through the United States, Mexico, Guatemala, went into the jungles of Tikal. I remember flying from Guatemala City to Tikal, and I'm looking at all this jungle out there. I'm thousands of miles away from everything. No one knew where I was, and I had this great tension in me and fear about, my goodness, if we crash here, no one will save us. No one will know I'm here, and I'll die. And it reached a crescendo, and that was another sort of pivotal moment in my life, because at that point in time, there was an emotional sort of release that took place, like a rubber band snapping. And I says, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. It's out of my control. And I could say at that point in time, I lost my fear of death, because there was nothing I could do about it. So I went on into the Navy, and, teamwork makes the dream work. And if there's ever a place where you need teamwork, that's on a nuclear submarine. And the key to that is everybody knows their job. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. No one's carrying anybody else. And there was some pretty severe, or significant, I should say, peer pressure to do your job. It's kind of like Belichick used to say with the Patriots. He says, do your job. You have an assignment, whether you're a wide receiver or linebacker or running back, whatever your job is, do that, and don't try to cover for somebody else's job. And I think it's a good philosophy. So after that, I ended up working in a little while for Ford Motor Company, then for the railroad for most of my career in maintenance. At one point in time, I was managing a $100 million a year manufacturing line. Very successful. We had a couple of key things we did with empowering our employees and engaging them. And in 2 years, we were able to improve the productivity of that production line by 60%, which is really significant. It was really significant. We're able to do that. But the key to that was the magic question. I would ask them a magic question. I had these improvement teams that I facilitated, up to 11 each week on all 3 shifts. And we'd meet for half an hour, which representatives from each group. And I would ask them the magic question, which I'll leave for perhaps the next segment.
That sounds good. So, Mike, so many different questions I want to ask you. We're running out of time in the segment here, but I definitely want to also pick your brain a little bit on your experience with Mount Kilimanjaro as we get into the next segment. But and also, we're going to talk next segment, guys, about Mike has defined there's 3 types of languages, and that's key to a lot of this teamwork thing that Mike talks about and that he's an expert in. So I guess we'll save that for the next segment. But it's absolutely fascinating. I actually want to ask you a couple questions as well about your experience on a submarine. I've always been fascinated with it. I've been down on submarines before, not underwater, but like to go through and tour them. And I've always kind of wondered about that. So I'm anxious to pick your brain a little bit about that. So we're going to hit a break here, and we're going to continue talking with Mike. You can find out more at his website, executivecoachingservices.net. Come back after the break on Mr. Biz Radio.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And we're talking again this week with Mr. Michael Starr. So, Michael, I wanted to dive into this because we had a lot to cover here, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Mount Kilimanjaro. I find it absolutely fascinating. So I have to ask to start, you mentioned the canoeing trip was during perhaps an evening of imbibement. Was Kilimanjaro, was that under, precipitated under similar circumstances?
No.
Okay.
That's a really, I think that's a very interesting question as to what led to that.
Yeah.
I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro at the age of 69 years.
Oh, wow.
And actually the day after I came down, there was a lady behind me who set the world record, and she had climbed Kilimanjaro at the age of 89. So she was like the world record setter. But Kilimanjaro was a very intentional objective. I came, well, there's a quote that I like, and it's sort of like a lead in. And that quote is, "I've climbed the ladder of success only to reach the top and realize my ladder was against the wrong wall." And so often in life, you'll hear people say, I achieved, look at Hemingway, great writer, brilliant guy, and ended up killing himself. I had a general practitioner who used to be a neurosurgeon at UCLA. And he said, I woke up one day, I'd been married 3 times, all my kids hated me, and I never had any time for fun. He quit his high pressure work and he just opened up a clinic there in Southern California. So I made the decision that I would continue working as long as my work fun exceeded my anticipated after work fun. And so I actually stayed working an additional, I would say 6 years after I really needed to, or I could have retired. And in the meantime, I kept saying, well, look, in retirement, it's not about, sitting around playing golf, drinking cocktails, it's about, doing something challenging, exciting, something purposeful. And so it was intentional. I said, I was going to do something that was really going to challenge me. So I decided I wanted to climb the base camp on Mount Everest. And after I studied that a bit, I says, nah, I'd rather go to Africa. It's a more unique experience. Kilimanjaro is a singularity there. It's the largest mountain in all of Africa. So I had thought that through, and I have this concept in my book that it's this philosophy called betterism, where we seek to achieve to be better, every day, every month, and that we drive and compete with ourselves. And I define goal as the destination plus the journey, that it's a wise destination and it's an enjoyable journey that's full of integrity and great relationships. So I chose Kilimanjaro intentionally because I knew there would take a lot of preparation. So I spent a year getting ready for it, and it was a load of fun. My wife and I flew to Flagstaff because the highest mountain in Arkansas is 2,500 feet. So we went to Flagstaff, where it was like 12,000 feet. And I was getting Amazon packages 3 times a week. I was watching YouTubes like there was no tomorrow. I was hiking 20 to 25 miles a week, hiking 4 or 5 days a week. I had a personal trainer. It was so much fun. It was so engaging to prepare. And I had this purpose, was to go and climb Kilimanjaro, and the preparation was just as valuable as the destination of what I wanted to achieve. And when I landed in Kilimanjaro Airport, which was on July the 5th of 2019, it was at nighttime. I says, you know what? Let the games begin. I was like a player who was on the football field, and I'd done all my practice, understood the playbook. I was ready to go, and whether I made it to the top was unknown, but I as far as I was concerned, I had succeeded. So yeah, it was an intentional plan to do something that gave me purpose. And in the meantime, it made me pretty darn healthy with all the eating properly and exercising. And I had this whole team of people looking after me. I had heart tests. I went and checked on thought I had a hernia. It turned out I had a double hernia, and they fixed that. So I was like tip-top shape there at the age of 69, but it was an intentional decision as opposed to some crazy drunken decision at a New Year's party.
That's fair. I can imagine. I mean, the preparation for that, you know, like you said, a whole year leading up to it, it's pretty crazy. So Michael, let's transition a little bit. I want to kind of start to get into some of these things and some of these techniques you use. And I know one of the bases for what you talk about is with teamwork and things like that is the different types of languages. Tell us a little bit about your definition of those 3 types of languages.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I started working on my book 25 years ago. I've been writing it in earnest for 10 years, and first it was published in December. And I have experienced in my family, in my businesses, and in the communities I was involved with, a lot of suffering, a lot of conflict, a lot of pain, a lot of unnecessary things, whether it's suicides, divorces, drug addictions, crime, etc. And I kept saying there's got to be a better way to reduce this suffering, to reduce this pain, to have more joy, more harmony, have more meaning to our lives. And I came up with 2 conclusions. And one conclusion was obvious, that I'm the source of my own problems as well as the source of my very own solutions. I am the hero and I am the nemesis. Mm-hmm. But the other part that was surprising to me is that the everyday language we use has embedded in it a self-fulfilling prophecy. For example, I have this little rescue dog. We have 2 of them, but the last one we got, his name is Rippy. He's a Chihuahua. And when we adopted him, I said to my wife after a while, it's the most unfriendly dog we've ever had. And I thought about it in the context of my book, and I realized, I'm not going to see him as unfriendly. I'm going to see him as maybe afraid, maybe scared, maybe he was abused in his previous life, and maybe it's just baked into his DNA. What a difference it makes when I approach Rippy as afraid and scared as opposed to unfriendly. So when we shift our language, it can change the way, substantially, how we respond to things. Change your language, change your thinking, change your observation of the world around you and how you respond to it, make decisions around it. There are 3 types of languages: wise, empowering languages, and I use terms like newt, the natural order things, that things are inevitable to be as they are, and then things like lear, where there's a legitimate, empowering, alternate realities. There's more than one reality to see how things are. Let's choose the empowering one. There's dangerous and tyrannical language, like change is a dangerous word as opposed to improve. Stupid is a dangerous word because it kind of pigeonholes how we see people. And then there's useless language. Forgiveness is not a doable verb. It doesn't achieve anything. It just has us going round and round, and we don't get to the point where we want to go from harboring ill feelings to no longer harboring those ill feelings. So by being aware of useless language and not using it, by being aware of dangerous language and avoiding it, and using wise, empowering language, we have to actually propel ourselves. And if you want to use a word, we manifest a healthy reality for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's critically important. I had a guy real quick. Actually, you know what? We're going to run out of time here. I'll mention it from my corporate career. That fits exactly what you're talking about here, Michael. Again, we're talking with Michael Starr, executivecoachingservices.net. Come back after the break, and we're going to find out how to foster better relationships.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right, only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show, guys. We're going to talk. I want to really get into this and pick Michael's brain here a bit about, using some of the things that he had just talked about, the 3 types of languages that he's defined to foster those better teamwork and better relationships. So Michael, what are some things that you see from your experience? I mean, all the successes you've had, not only in the military, but also in the corporate world and in the manufacturing world, I should say. And then tackling these huge, things, the canoeing from Pittsburgh to New Orleans, Mount Kilimanjaro, et cetera. Those things all take teamwork, and teamwork is part of that is, having great relationships within that. Give us some tips, if you would, on how we can do that in our everyday lives.
I also had a lot of involvement in Al-Anon, which is support for families of alcoholics. I've had quite a bit of involvement in NAMI, which is families with mental health issues. So it's been very compelling for me to discover and foster the best use of my, I guess, behavior in dealing with others. I would say number 1 at the top of the list is to be your own best friend. If you were to talk to my wife and say, who's Mike's best friend? She would smirk and laugh and she'd go, oh, he's his own best friend. He loves himself. He's a legend in his own mind, blah, blah, blah. So she would say that. But, why do we like some people and not like other people? It's because of their behavior. I think in this day and age, there's very few people that are particularly, if they're mature, care about how tall you are, how short you are, what your ethnicity is, what your sexual preferences are. It's really about behavior. Are you rude? Are you kind? Are you someone that can be relied upon? Are you deceitful? It's the behavior that causes us to gravitate towards or away from certain people. Well, there's a lot of talk, I see a lot of sort of books and coaching I call it kind of esoteric, about manifesting things and loving yourself and that type of thing. But I'm more about being your friend, because I can put my arms around what it means to be a friend. And to be your own best friend, you have to have behavior that you're proud of and you believe in. In my book, in one of the chapters, I talk about the 10 convictions. In my coaching, I work with all my clients in developing over a period a couple of times. What are the 10 top things that you believe in? For me, it would include things like be my word, always do what I say I'm going to do. Another one would have empathy for people. It's kind of like Lincoln says, with malice towards none and charity for all, and then set boundaries with consequences. To be respectful, to be growing in my understanding and open, and to be able to agree to disagree. If you're clear about and it could be 11 convictions. I have some clients that say, oh, can I have 12? I said, sure, you could have 12.
That's that empathy, Michael.
Yeah, there you go. And live your life in alignment with those beliefs. Because when you're out of alignment, you're in sort of cognitive dissonance. Believe one thing, do another, and it creates a lot of internal friction. So I'd say that's rule number 1. Know what you really believe in your heart and hearts, and make sure it has integrity about it. And then the other thing I would say is really understand empathy. I have a term in my book called NEWT, the natural order of things. That given the history, the family, the geography, the socioeconomic circumstances, the era, all of those circumstances, the DNA of any particular individual, it was inevitable that they became who they became. I don't care if you're Attila the Hun or Mother Teresa. It was inevitable that they became who they became. When you begin to see the world through eyes that way, you have you have empathy for them, and it diffuses any kind of anger, resentment, need to defame them, need to denigrate them, and you can now decide how to act in a healthy way. Well, then what comes next is, okay, you have empathy for them, you understand, but there may be some behaviors, particularly in the business world, or the team world, that just is unacceptable. I can get it that this person is consistently late. They can't help themselves given their background, but can't be on my team. I'm so sorry. We don't
Right.
have people that can't be on the team. So you set boundaries, and the boundaries are more for what you're going to do, not what they are going to do. So here's my boundaries, and when they do XYZ, I have these what I call dispassionate consequences. This is what I'm going to do each and every time. I'm not going to do it anger. I'm not going to do it resentment. I remember I ran a business, and it was not a, it's not a business for the faint of heart, railroad business and cranes and welders and heavy work. And I had a fellow once ask me, he says, how do you feel about firing people? I said, I never fired anybody in my life. They fire themselves.
Boom.
That's how I saw it. So
Yep.
I say the second thing is really have empathy, know how to set boundaries, with you know with consequences, so that people know where they stand, what's right and wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And then the last thing, and this is a little new, and I've kind of gathered this more in the NAMI organization, the mental health organization, listening. I can't begin to well, I can begin, as I am going to, but I can't expand enough on it, the value of what I call relationship listening. There's a fellow called Javier Amador. He wrote a book, I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, in the mental health community, and he calls it reflective listening. I call it relationship listening. Listening is so powerful. When we acknowledge and we hear people, we don't judge them, we acknowledge and feed back to them what we heard. We eventually build a relationships, and that's how we build relationships, is really listening, hearing, acknowledging, not judging. And then they're finally open to say, what do you think? Now you have an opening. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the listening is a very valuable way to show that. I do want to say one thing as I see the segment is drawing to a close, and I appreciate this opportunity. I promised your audience the magic question on how we achieved such great success on our $100 million a year production line. I ask this question of all the teams every week. How can I make your job easier? How can I make your job easier? We would write it down. If it was halfway legitimate, we would post it in their work area. And do you know, in one work group in 2 years, out of 330 or 40 requests, we actually resolved 300 of them. And that was the secret of our success. We I guess force multiplied the brains and knowledge of our employees so that they felt empowered, they felt part of the solution, and they felt heard. And boy, did they have some great ideas. And I guess the last part I would want to pass, if I may, to everybody is, when you're running a team, when you're running a business, really take your time on who you hire and who's on your team, because you bring in a good apple and it rubs off on everybody else, and vice versa. So really take your time in vetting people, bringing in people who believe in merit and believe in personal responsibility. If it's to be, it's up to me, and are willing to take a secondary position to the benefit of the greater good.
Yeah, I think that's hugely responsible. Well, I talk often with my own clients as well, and it sounds a little harsh on the surface, but along those same lines, Michael, as I say, you can't fire a bad employee fast enough, because they will bring down morale. They'll drag down the team, and if they're not carrying their part, you're going to end up losing your superstars, because the superstars are filling the gaps and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's that spiraling up and spiraling down, as you mentioned earlier, Michael. Michael, we're running out of time here.
They'd sink
Sorry.
a submarine.
Yeah, yeah. We're running out of time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It was absolutely fascinating conversation.
Thank you, sir. I'm honored. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, have a fantastic remainder of your week. And don't forget, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.